There's 4 C's to create a lot more cash flow. That's everything from your credit to the collateral that you have when you're getting a loan, to the cash flow reporting, to even the connections.
Let's put more money in your pocket, increase your financial IQ, and create more peace of mind, clarity, and certainty in your life. Welcome to Money Matters, a weekly segment of the Wealth Labs podcast where we tackle the money topics that matter.
Today we're going to focus on credit tips. You know, there's a score that we all have, and depending on your score, you might pay more for insurance, or you might pay more for any interest on any loan that you get. Once you understand how this game works, it's not a game that's logical a lot of times. It's not something that's self-evident. But once you know it and you kind of get the cheat sheet, by the way, this is legal cheating. It's just simply knowing what to do so that you can improve your credit to the highest amount. And when it gets above 780, all of a sudden you have a lot more at your fingertips. You have a lot better situation for your life. So I've got Tim Absolutely Carden. Tim Absolutely Carden, he'll say absolutely at least once, if not 10 times during this. So you'll be absolutely in the know when it comes to your credit score. So Tim, let's talk about this. Let's go through just some basic things people can look at to boost their credit score. Because if they don't have a good credit score, they're going to pay more in interest, or they're going to get denied a loan. There's people with errors out there. There's simple things that we could do. Because the first time I learned about it, I was doing my radio show that I had way back in the day. And this guy, Phil Tyrone's teaching me, and I'm texting my wife while I'm on the radio with all the tips. And we got, I think it was like 79-point increase over 30 days. So that's what I'm hoping to do, is jump your credit, improve your cash, and your overall finances.
And I was listening to your radio show that day when I was running my real estate company up in Idaho. I heard Phil, and so I called Phil after the radio show and did the exact same thing, boosted my credit very quickly, and gained an understanding of how that system even works.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett said in an article a couple years ago, if he doesn't have $20 billion in cash, he's uncomfortable. And yet someone...
That's how I feel too, you know, I mean...
Me too. I'm just uncomfortable all the time. And so you think about the billionaire who probably has the most cash on hand at any given time is probably Warren Buffett. Everyone else has it in the equity of their business. But if somebody tried to create a fake profile mimicking Warren Buffett and run it through the algorithms at the credit bureaus, and it came out with a 580 credit score.
Really?
And so if you were basically, all you saw is Warren Buffett, is his credit score, and he went in to apply for a loan, they would deny it or do a crazy high interest rate, make him collateralize a bunch of things. I mean, it'd be nuts for him to get a loan. And yet he's probably the person in America that could pay off any loan at any given time,
right.
You know, no matter what.
Yeah, but our mutual friend and my registered investment advisor, Ryan, he had a client that's basically trying to get this loan. This guy's a multi-millionaire. He's putting down 50% on this home that he's buying, but he hadn't used his credit in over 10 years. He gets denied the loan because of utilization. So this is a game that's important to understand so you have access to money.
Yeah, and so the two biggest areas of what your credit is actually calculated based upon. The first one is called your utilization rate. It's worth 35% of your total credit score. So out of the 850 points, it's like 298 of them are based just on utilization.
Let me just tell you, if you're over 800, you're just bragging. I'm not over 800. My wife is, and she likes to remind me that she's over 800. I'm like, great. And?
Yes. But since you're over 780, you're still getting the best rates even though you're not over 800.
Yeah.
Right? So
that's why I let her know. It's useless points. It doesn't matter.
Useless points,
yeah.
Right? Yeah. So if 35% are based on utilization, that's going to be our number one area to focus. The second biggest area is on our payment history. Do we pay on time? That's 30% of our score. And so those two areas alone, out of the 5 different criteria, are 65% of the total credit score. Then we've got things like credit blend. Do we have different types of loans? So do we have an installment loan? Do we have a mortgage? Do we have...
Installment loan would be like a car loan or a signature loan on like maybe even a piece of jewelry that has a finite period of time that you pay back, that you can't just go borrow more at any time.
Yep.
Revolving loans would be like a line of credit against a home or a credit card where you can pay it down and charge it back up.
Yep, and they want to see that you have different types of credit so you can use different types of credit appropriately. Then there's inquiries, which is the number of times a creditor pulls your credit. So someone that's investigating you on whether or not they're going to give you a loan, if they pull your credit, that's a bad thing for you.
Yeah, that's known as a hard inquiry when they do it. When you do it, it's a soft inquiry, meaning you're going to Credit Karma or Annual Credit Report or some service like that, and you're checking your credit score. You can do that obsessively, compulsively, and be fine. But when I went to buy my first car, I looked a lot like this, but it was more my Kurt Cobain phase. I did have hoop earrings. I did have blondish, kind of dyed long hair. And when I walked into the dealerships, I went into a Lexus dealership, an Infiniti dealership, and I ended up buying an Acura, they all checked really quickly, like, is this even worth our time to talk to this jackass? And so, they pulled my credit so much it actually dinged my score.
Absolutely. We want to stick mostly to one hard inquiry a year if we can. So try and plan that out. They do give us some shopping windows on inquiries. So if I'm shopping for a mortgage, I can go out and actually have like 3 different lenders pull my credit within a 30-day window and have it only count as one inquiry.
Right.
So just try and plan that
Or
out
like
a little
if
bit.
you want to apply for multiple credit cards, because somewhere between 3 to 5 credit cards can actually help you optimize your score. You could apply for all those in the same day.
Absolutely.
And only show us one inquiry.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think they give us about a two-week window for car loans and credit cards.
Yeah.
Where we can say, hey, these are all just one, right? So that's something to keep in mind, and that'll really help out on the 3 to 5 credit cards, jumping back to the utilization rate.
Well, and even like when I open up a bank account, I open it up at the bank I'm already dealing with. So all the time I'll say, hey, can we get this account without pulling my credit because I have a history here? And they say yes, and they do that. So you could be deliberate and mindful about that. And if I haven't got a loan for a car for a long time, but if I were, I always go in and say, hey, let's just assume I'm paying cash. Like I don't want them pulling anything or looking at any report without my permission.
Yeah, and I usually clarify that up front with them. I just walk in, you do not have permission to pull my credit yet, and then go through the negotiation process and say, based on me having this credit score, what would this look like? And then when I'm ready to do the loan, let them pull it because they're going to need it for their file.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you mentioned, they're so fast at pulling your credit. As soon as
What's
they
that,
start,
like 10% of your overall score is inquiries?
10%
right?
is inquiries. So it's
Yeah,
not
so
a
it's
huge
not
impact,
the biggest thing, but
it can hurt.
Right. We obviously know if you pay on time, that makes a big difference. But let's look at just a few tips that are going to help them boost the score.
Perfect. So if utilization rate is the biggest impact, that's going to be the first area we're going to go to improve our credit score. So what utilization rate is how much total credit is available to us. So I might have 5 credit cards, $10,000 of limit on each card. That's a total of $50,000 of credit I can go out and borrow on those cards. If I'm using above 30% of that credit every month consistently, even if I pay the balance to 0, but I'm using more than $15,000.
It's when they look in.
It's when they look in. Then that hurts me.
Right.
And then the lower I go, the more it helps me. So myfico.com did a study about 2 years ago now, and they said that the average for people who had the highest credit score of 780 or above, the average lender or borrower actually had between around 8 to 10% of a utilization rate. So they found that if you got the utilization rate below 30, it actually could improve your score.
Which is having maybe a few more cards, avoiding department store cards that don't give you a lot of balance or availability, and then every so often increasing what's available to you. I just had Chase say to me, hey, we're willing to do a no inquiry potential increase. You just have to go here by this date. And so I'll plan on doing that later today, just going on, seeing if I get that increase, because the more that's available to me, the better I look as a borrower.
And people don't really realize you can always ask for it too. You don't have to wait for them to approach you. You can call them up. Once again, as we talked in an earlier video on credit,
Yeah.
right, and credit cards, and we said call or to renegotiate your loans. Well, you can do the same thing on the credit limit. Call the credit card companies. Don't speak to the first person that answers. They don't have the ability to make anything, and say, I want you to increase my credit limit without pulling my credit score.
Yeah.
And you'd be shocked how often they'll do that for you.
I did that when I used to like American Express. My nemesis. Someone stole $13,000 on American Express, and then we got in a battle back and forth of whether it was fraudulent or not. It was during 2008. So that's neither here nor there. But they would just constantly increase. I had 6 figures worth as time went on available before I had a little dispute with them, and had a little battle. So yeah, and then they work with Delta, and I fly Delta all the time. So these are the real problems that I'm facing here, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I know everybody, feels bad for me here with these problems, but you want to have, if you're at 780 or above, I wouldn't go get more credit cards.
Nope.
And if you have a department store card, I wouldn't cancel that. I might cut it up and never use it again, but you don't want to lose that credit history.
Yeah.
When I was really in my early 20s or late teens, I actually went and put myself on some of my mom's credit cards that had history that weren't before my time, right? But it actually boosted my score. They ended up fixing that system. So I realized, oh my gosh, I can get her credit history, which is impeccable, and that helped me get ahead of the game. So you can always look for some of these hacks. They usually find them and close them up a little bit.
They do. They're very good at that. And the utilization rate used to be something that you could fix monthly. So if this month I did have a really high utilization because there was an emergency in my family or an investment for my business and I maxed out my credit cards and they happened to look in and see like 100% utilization rate, I could pay those down to zero, try not to put anything on them or very little on them the next month, and then look back in and it would lower right back down. It was around June of 2016, they turned it into, they're now looking at a 2-year average on your utilization rate.
2-year average. Okay, so here's the thing you got to watch for, because there's a lot of errors, and errors have a big impact on your credit. If they don't show what's available to you on your lines of credit or your credit cards, and you go charge $2,000 and it should be you're only at 20% utilization, 80% unutilized, it might look like you're maxed out because they're not reporting that limit. That's one of the sneaky things to look for on the error side.
Absolutely, and you get to dispute that. And when you dispute that, just keep another thing in mind on disputes. If you do the online disputes, which is really common, they'll say, hey, if you want to dispute, click here. And then there's that I agree to these terms and conditions thing that none of us ever read because it would take our entire life to read it. When you click I agree, you typically are giving away some of your rights that you get through the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So I'd recommend, especially on the important things that are really going to have a big impact on your score, going the old-fashioned way and actually writing the letter and sending it through snail mail.
Certified mail, certified. And don't debate more than 3 things at a time. It's then seen as frivolous. So look at utilization rate. Keep it under 20% by either increasing those limits over time or having additional cards. Limit your inquiries when someone else is checking into your credit. And what are some other things that we want people to do?
You'll see a lot of, they say that credit fraud is the fastest growing reported crime. And they always say reported crime because what they found is it's usually not actual credit fraud. It's usually them combining your record with someone else's.
So it's an error.
It's an error from the bureau or the algorithm, right? When they go in to pull your credit and you say, hey, I want my credit today, the algorithm or the computer program goes in and says, this isn't Garrett, this isn't Garrett, this isn't Garrett, and what's left is what they can't prove isn't you. So if you have someone with similar addresses, similar names, similar birth date, similar social security number, 5 digits that are similar, even out of order, can sometimes trigger this to happen to you. So sometimes you'll see something like, oh man, this guy opened a card in my name, and what happened was he didn't open a card in your name. They just couldn't prove that that person wasn't you, and so they combined it with yours.
Right.
So you'll see that, and you can dispute that as well.
And you're almost certain to have an error on your report if you have the same name as someone else in your family. You're a junior, a third, or anything like that. A lot of times those things will get merged. So you want to look and see, is your name accurate across all 3 bureaus? Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. So when you're looking at this, at least annually, then you're looking at, do they have the right address? Because these kind of things matter, and one measly point can be a big difference when you're getting a mortgage. It could be the difference between having to buy down a rate with thousands of dollars or not, right? Even though it's the same loan and you're the same borrower, it's just how these things are reported. So,
and the loan costs go up drastically based on that too, what you actually get charged in fees up front based on your credit score. So
an installment loan can help your score too, like a car loan that you pay on time and eventually pay off. That could boost your score. That would be another thing that could be done. So look for errors, look at your utilization rate, continue to increase what's available to you, limit the number of people checking in, look at this regularly on your own, make sure there's nothing that doesn't belong to you, dispute no more than 3 things at a time, and if there is something that's way past due or from your past, don't just pay it off, get a letter of deletion first, get them to agree they're going to delete it when you pay it off so it doesn't bring it current and actually harm your score. That seems like the craziest thing to me.
It is, and it's the worst thing that happened to people too. And you'll find some other things in the real estate meltdown. I had a real estate company, so I didn't escape that completely clean. There was a foreclosure on my record. The foreclosure notice and everything that I got from them said the foreclosure happened in 2010. They didn't report the finalization of the foreclosure until 2018. That's 3 more years that would have negatively impacted my credit had I not gone in and disputed that and cleaned that up.
Right.
So there's errors, there's things that you can do, and you've got to just kind of, you said, be proactive. Look at your credit at least once per year from each bureau, and you can spread that out and stagger it. You get the report for free, so look at it and see what's on the report and clean it up.
All right, clean up your credit, get more money because of it, have better access to money, pay less in insurance. They look at your credit score for some of your insurances like car and homeowners insurance. All right, we're helping you keep more of what you make, take back control of your finances, and build a better life.